The Grand Meridian Ballroom sparkled like a galaxy brought down to earth. Hundreds of tiny lights danced across the ceiling, casting warm shadows on the polished marble floor. White roses climbed elegant columns, their petals so perfect they looked painted. The air smelled of champagne and expensive perfume, the kind that lingers long after the wearer has left the room. Victoria Hayes stood near the center of it all, her wedding dress flowing around her like liquid moonlight. The gown had taken 6 months to design and 3 fittings to perfect. Now, as the final guests filtered toward the exit, she felt the weight of the silk train dragging behind her, heavier than she remembered. Her feet ached inside the delicate heels. Her cheeks hurt from smiling for 8 straight hours. But her heart felt light, almost floating, filled with the kind of happiness that seems too big for one body to contain. She was married. Victoria Hayes had become Victoria Whitmore just hours ago, standing beneath an arch of white orchids while 300 people watched. She had spoken vows that made her voice shake. She had kissed James while cameras flashed like small explosions of light. James Whitmore stood across the emptying ballroom, tall and impossibly handsome in his tailored tuxedo. His dark hair was perfectly styled, not a strand out of place despite the long day. When he looked at her, Victoria's breath caught in her throat. But something about his eyes seemed different now. Colder. More distant. She pushed the thought away. He was tired. They were both exhausted. The honeymoon suite occupied the entire 20th floor of the hotel. When they stepped inside, the city of Seattle spread out before them through floor-to-ceiling windows. Lights twinkled like earthbound stars. The Space Needle rose in the distance, glowing against the dark sky. Rose petals covered the king-sized bed. Champagne waited in a silver bucket, tiny drops of condensation sliding down the bottle. Soft music played from hidden speakers. Everything was perfect. Victoria slipped off her heels and laughed, a sound of pure relief. Her feet thanked her instantly. "I still cannot believe we are actually married," she said, turning toward James. "Mrs. Victoria Whitmore. It sounds like someone else's name." James stood by the window, his back to her. His shoulders looked tense beneath the expensive fabric of his jacket. "James?" Victoria stepped closer, her dress whispering across the carpet. "Is something wrong?" The silence stretched between them like a rubber band pulled too tight. Victoria felt her smile fade, replaced by something cold creeping up her spine. When James finally turned around, his face looked different. The warmth from the ceremony had vanished, replaced by an expression she had never seen before. He looked like a stranger wearing her husband's face. "Victoria," he said. Just her name, but the way he said it made her stomach drop. "We need to talk." Those 4 words. The worst 4 words in any language. Victoria felt her hands go cold. "What is it?" she asked, even though part of her already knew she did not want to hear the answer. James took a deep breath, the kind people take before jumping into cold water. "I tried. I really did try. I thought I could do this. I thought I could be the husband you deserve." The room seemed to tilt. Victoria gripped the back of a nearby chair. "But I cannot," James continued, his voice steady and clinical. "I was wrong. And I do not want to build a marriage on a lie." "What are you saying?" Victoria's voice came out as a whisper. "I want a divorce." The words hit her like a physical blow. For a moment, she forgot how to breathe. "You are joking," she said. "James, we just got married. Hours ago. We said vows in front of everyone we know." "I know." His face remained calm, almost businesslike. "And I am sorry. But I cannot pretend anymore." He walked to the desk by the window and pulled out a manila folder. The papers inside were crisp and white, already filled with legal language. "I had my lawyer prepare these," he said. "You will be compensated fairly. You will not have to worry about money. Compensated? The word felt like poison in her mouth. Did I do something wrong? If something is bothering you, we can work on it. We can fix whatever this is. There is nothing to fix. James set the folder on the table between them. The problem is not you. Then what is it? Victoria heard her voice rising but could not control it. What is so terrible that you want to end our marriage on our wedding night? James hesitated. For the first time that evening, something flickered across his face. Guilt, perhaps. Or maybe just discomfort. I love someone else, he said. The world stopped spinning. Victoria felt her knees weaken. Who? She asked, though part of her already knew. Camilla Rosewood. The name did not surprise her. Camilla Rosewood, the woman James had dated before Victoria. The fashion photographer with the perfect life and the perfect face that appeared in magazines. The one James claimed to be completely over. But she is engaged to someone else, Victoria said, her voice hollow. Not anymore. She ended it. She called me 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks. 3 weeks before their wedding. And James had still stood at that altar, still held her hands, still kissed her while everyone applauded. Get out, Victoria said quietly. Victoria, listen. Get out. Her voice broke on the words. Get out of this room right now. James grabbed his jacket without another word. The door closed behind him with a soft click that sounded too gentle for the moment. Victoria stood frozen in the center of the honeymoon suite, surrounded by rose petals and champagne and the ruins of her future. Then her legs gave out. She sank to the floor, her wedding dress pooling around her like melted snow. She did not cry. The pain was too deep for tears, too complete for any sound to express it. Outside the window, the city continued glowing. Cars moved along distant streets. Life went on, indifferent to the fact that hers had just shattered into 1,000 pieces. Victoria sat there in her wedding dress, understanding something she never thought she would learn on what should have been the happiest night of her life. Some marriages end before they even begin. Morning light filtered through the thin curtains of Victoria's apartment, pale and colorless. She sat on her small couch, still wearing yesterday's dress, the fabric wrinkled and lifeless now. The apartment felt smaller than she remembered, the walls closer together, the ceiling lower. Her suitcase stood by the door, packed for a honeymoon in Hawaii that would never happen. The tags still dangled from the handle, mocking her with their cheerful colors. Victoria stared at her left hand. The wedding ring caught the light, sending small rainbows across the wall. She slowly twisted it off her finger. The metal felt cold and foreign, like it had never really belonged there. She placed it on the coffee table where it landed with a tiny sound that seemed too loud in the quiet room. The kettle whistled in the kitchen. Victoria made coffee because her hands needed something to do. If she stopped moving, everything might fall apart. When the doorbell rang, she already knew who it was. Hannah burst through the door carrying 2 paper bags and wearing an expression that could start fires. Her red hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and her green eyes blazed with fury. Where is he? Hannah demanded. Tell me where James is so I can go have a conversation with him. Hannah. Victoria's voice came out flat and empty. Come inside. Hannah stepped in and froze when she saw the suitcase, the wedding dress, the untouched apartment. Her anger drained away, replaced by horror. Why are you here? She whispered. You should be on a plane right now. You should be drinking champagne and laughing about how perfect everything is. He asked for a divorce, Victoria said, each word carefully measured. Last night. In the honeymoon suite. He what? Hannah dropped the bags on the counter. He said he loves someone else. Camilla Rosewood. His ex-girlfriend. Hannah let out a string of words that would make sailors blush. She pulled Victoria into a hug so tight it almost hurt. Victoria stood stiffly in her arms, unable to return the embrace, unable to cry, unable to do anything but exist. "Are you okay?" Hannah asked, pulling back to study her face. "No," Victoria answered honestly. "But I am still here." "What are you going to do?" Victoria sat down and folded her hands in her lap. Sunlight crept across the wooden floor and stopped at her feet. "I will sign the papers when they arrive," she said. "Then I will move on." "You are not going to fight? Not going to demand an explanation?" "No." The word came out firm and final. "I will not beg a man to choose me. I will not waste my time on someone who stood at an altar with me while his heart belonged to another woman." Hannah studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "You deserve so much better than this." "I know," Victoria replied. And for the first time, that knowledge felt like solid ground beneath her feet instead of a bitter consolation. The day passed in a strange fog. Victoria cleaned her apartment, putting everything back in its proper place. She took the wedding dress and hung it carefully in the back of her closet, zipping the garment bag with steady hands. No tears. No dramatic gestures. Just quiet acceptance. By afternoon, her phone buzzed with a message from James. She did not open it. 3 more messages arrived throughout the evening. She turned the phone face down and left it there. Monday morning arrived faster than Victoria expected. She woke early, showered, and dressed in her favorite navy suit. The woman in the mirror looked tired but determined. Her brown eyes held something new, a hardness that had not been there before. Hayes and Associates occupied the 10th floor of a modern building downtown. The design firm had been her workplace for 5 years, and walking through the glass doors felt like coming home after a long journey. Victoria. Her assistant, Meredith, looked up from her desk with surprise. "You are back already? I thought you would be gone for 2 weeks." "Change of plans," Victoria said with a smile that did not reach her eyes. "Is the Anderson project file ready?" "Yes, but..." Meredith hesitated. "Are you sure you want to jump back in so fast?" "Positive. Work is exactly what I need right now." Victoria threw herself into her projects with an intensity that surprised even herself. She redesigned an entire restaurant layout, created mood boards for a hotel chain, and revised 3 client presentations. Every email sent, every sketch completed, every decision made helped rebuild the structure of her life. Her colleagues noticed but said nothing. They offered coffee and gentle smiles but respected her need for normalcy. At lunch, Victoria sat alone in the break room, staring at a salad she had no appetite for. Her phone buzzed. An email notification. From Whitmore Holdings HR Department. Subject: Interview Invitation, Senior Design Director Position. Victoria's hand froze halfway to her fork. Whitmore Holdings. James's family company. The corporation his father had built from nothing, the empire James was supposed to inherit. She opened the email with trembling fingers. "Dear Ms. Hayes, we have reviewed your portfolio and are impressed with your work. We would like to invite you to interview for the Senior Design Director position at Whitmore Holdings. Please contact us to schedule a convenient time. Sincerely, Thomas Whitmore, Chief Executive Officer." Victoria read the name 3 times. Thomas Whitmore. Not James. Thomas was James's younger brother, the one who had always worked quietly in the background while James took the spotlight. She opened a new browser tab and typed quickly. The search results loaded. Whitmore Holdings announces new CEO. Thomas Whitmore, 32, takes over leadership from his brother James Whitmore, who stepped down last month to pursue other interests. Victoria sat back in her chair, her mind racing. James was no longer CEO. He had stepped down. Or been forced out. The article did not say which. She stared at the email for a long time. Every logical part of her brain screamed to delete it, to avoid anything connected to the Whitmore name. But another part of her, a part that was tired of running and hiding, whispered something different. This was her career. Her profession. Her future. And she had worked too hard to let James Whitmore take that away from her too. Hannah called that evening while Victoria was making dinner. "You got a what?" Hannah shouted through the phone. "An interview. At Whitmore Holdings. And you are actually considering it?" "Victoria, that is James's company." "Was James's company," Victoria corrected. "His brother Thomas is CEO now. And this position would be a significant step forward in my career. But what if you run into James? Then I will be professional and polite and continue with my day." Victoria stirred pasta with more force than necessary. "I am not going to let him control my choices. Not anymore." Hannah was quiet for a moment. "You have changed." "Yes," Victoria agreed. "I have." That night, Victoria sat at her small dining table with the divorce papers spread before her. They had arrived that afternoon by courier, crisp and official and final. She read every line carefully, not out of hope but out of thoroughness. There was nothing about love in these documents. No mention of vows or promises. Just dates and signatures and the cold language of endings. Victoria picked up her pen. Her hand did not shake. She signed her name on the designated line, the ink drying almost instantly. Evelyn Moore. She had decided to go back to her maiden name. Victoria Hayes. The woman she was before James, the woman she would be after him. She sealed the papers in the return envelope and set it by the door for tomorrow's mail. Then she opened her laptop and typed a response to Thomas Whitmore's email. "Dear Mr. Whitmore, thank you for your interest in my work. I would be happy to schedule an interview at your earliest convenience. Best regards, Victoria Hayes." She hit send before she could change her mind. Outside her window, the city lights flickered like small promises. Victoria stood and looked out at Seattle, at the life continuing all around her, at the future waiting whether she was ready or not. She placed her hand over her heart and felt it beating. Steady. Strong. Still here. "Tomorrow," she whispered to her reflection. "Tomorrow I will be better than today." It was not a grand declaration. Not a dramatic transformation. Just a small promise to herself, the first of many she would make and keep in the days ahead. Some beginnings do not arrive with celebrations. They arrive quietly, in sealed envelopes and sent emails, in signed names and steady heartbeats. Victoria Hayes was beginning again. The Whitmore Holdings building rose 40 stories above downtown Seattle, all glass and steel and quiet power. Victoria stood on the sidewalk looking up, her portfolio clutched against her chest like a shield. 3 months had passed since her wedding night. 3 months of rebuilding herself piece by piece. The lobby was all marble and chrome, the kind of space designed to make visitors feel small. Victoria signed in at the security desk, received a visitor badge, and took the elevator to the 35th floor. The doors opened onto a reception area that looked more like an art gallery than an office. Natural light poured through massive windows. Plants grew in sleek containers. Everything was clean lines and careful beauty. "Ms. Hayes?" A woman in her 50s approached with a warm smile. "I am Patricia, Mr. Whitmore's executive assistant. He is ready for you." Victoria followed her down a corridor lined with photographs of architectural projects. At the end of the hall, double doors opened into a corner office with views that stretched across the entire city. Thomas Whitmore stood by the window, phone pressed to his ear. He held up one finger, asking for a moment, and Victoria took the opportunity to observe him. He looked nothing like his brother. Where James was tall and sharp-featured, Thomas was slightly shorter with softer edges. His brown hair was a bit too long, falling over his forehead in a way that suggested he forgot to get it cut. He wore a simple gray suit without the expensive flash that James favored. When he ended his call and turned around, his smile was genuine and reached his eyes. "Victoria Hayes," he said, extending his hand. "Thank you for coming. Please, sit down." His handshake was firm but not aggressive. His office was surprisingly modest for a CEO, with books stacked on every surface and a coffee mug that said, "World's Okayest Boss." "I have followed your work for a while," Thomas said, settling into the chair across from her instead of behind his desk. "The Riverside Hotel project was exceptional. How did you convince them to embrace that much natural light?" For the next hour, they talked about design philosophy, about creating spaces that made people feel something instead of just looking impressive. Thomas asked intelligent questions and listened carefully to her answers. He took notes by hand in a leather journal, his writing quick and messy. Victoria found herself relaxing despite her intentions to stay guarded. There was something genuine about Thomas, an absence of pretense that she rarely encountered in corporate settings. "I should be honest with you," Thomas said finally, setting down his pen. "I know about your connection to my family. I know you were briefly married to my brother." Victoria's stomach tightened. "I see. I want you to know that has absolutely no bearing on why you are here. I am looking for the best person for this position, and based on your portfolio, that person is you." He paused. "But I also want you to feel comfortable. If working here would be difficult because of James, I understand completely." "Does James still work here?" Victoria asked directly. "No. He left the company 2 months ago. He and our father had a disagreement about the direction of the business, among other things." Thomas's expression darkened slightly. "I never agreed with how James handled things with you. For what it is worth, I am sorry." The apology surprised her. "You do not need to apologize for your brother's choices." "Maybe not. But someone from this family should acknowledge that what he did was wrong." Thomas met her eyes steadily. "You deserved better." Something in Victoria's chest loosened slightly, a knot she had not realized was there. "Thank you," she said quietly. "That means more than you know." Thomas offered her the position at the end of their meeting. Senior Design Director, leading a team of 12, overseeing projects worth millions of dollars. It was everything she had worked toward for years. "I would like some time to think about it," Victoria said, even though every professional instinct screamed at her to accept immediately. "Of course. Take all the time you need." Victoria accepted the position 3 days later. Her first day at Whitmore Holdings was surprisingly normal. Her team welcomed her warmly, her office had a view of the water, and Thomas stopped by at lunch to make sure she had everything she needed. "How is your first day going?" he asked, leaning against her doorframe. "Better than expected," Victoria admitted. "Your team is talented." "Our team now," Thomas corrected with a smile. "Welcome aboard." The weeks that followed fell into a comfortable rhythm. Victoria threw herself into her work, redesigning office spaces and retail locations and luxury apartments. She stayed late most evenings, finding satisfaction in the tangible progress of each project. Thomas often worked late too. They fell into the habit of taking coffee breaks together, talking about everything from design trends to terrible movies they secretly loved. He made her laugh in a way she had not laughed in months. One evening, 6 weeks after she started, Victoria was working on a particularly challenging restaurant layout when Thomas knocked on her open door. "Still here?" he asked. "This booth arrangement is driving me crazy," Victoria said, gesturing at her screen. "Nothing feels right." Thomas walked over and studied the design. "What if you rotated this section 45 degrees? Create more intimate corners instead of straight lines." Victoria adjusted the layout. It worked perfectly. "You have a good eye," she said, looking up at him. I grew up watching my mother design our family homes. She taught me to see spaces differently. He paused. Are you hungry? I know a place that makes incredible Thai food. We could grab dinner and you could tell me more about why you got into interior design. Victoria hesitated. This felt different from their coffee breaks. More personal. More like something she was not sure she was ready for. But Thomas just smiled, patient and kind. Just dinner. No pressure. No expectations. Just two colleagues who happened to enjoy talking to each other. Okay, Victoria heard herself say. Just dinner. The restaurant was small and warm, tucked into a neighborhood far from the corporate towers downtown. They talked for 3 hours, their conversation flowing easily from childhood memories to favorite books to dreams they had not told anyone else. Why did you come back to the company? Victoria asked. You could have done anything. Started your own firm. Because I saw what my brother did to it, Thomas said quietly. He turned it into something cold and ruthless, all about profit and image. I wanted to bring back what my mother built. A place that creates beauty and treats people with respect. Is that why he left? Partly. He and my father fought about a lot of things. Including how James treated you. Thomas looked down at his plate. My father was furious when he found out. Said James had disgraced the family name. Victoria absorbed this information in silence. She had assumed James's family would take his side. I need to tell you something, Thomas said, his voice serious now. And I want to be completely honest with you. Victoria's heart rate picked up. Okay. I did not just hire you because you are talented, though you absolutely are. I hired you because I have admired you for a long time. Even before everything with James, I thought you were remarkable. He took a breath. And over these past weeks, getting to know you better, I have developed feelings for you that go beyond professional respect. Victoria sat very still, her mind racing. But, Thomas continued quickly, I am not asking you for anything. I am not expecting anything. I just needed to be honest. You deserve honesty. He smiled sadly. And if working together becomes uncomfortable, I will help you find another position. A better one. With a glowing recommendation. Victoria looked at this man who was nothing like his brother. Who apologized for things that were not his fault. Who made her laugh. Who saw her as a person, not a prize or a problem. I am not ready, she said slowly. For anything romantic. Not yet. I understand. But, she continued, I like talking to you. I like working with you. I like who I am when I am around you. She met his eyes. Could we just continue as we are? As friends? And see what happens? Thomas's smile was like sunrise. I would like that very much. They left the restaurant and walked through the quiet streets, talking about nothing important, enjoying the cool evening air. When they reached Victoria's apartment building, Thomas did not try to kiss her. He just squeezed her hand gently and said goodnight. Victoria rode the elevator up to her floor feeling something she had not felt in months. Hope. Small and fragile, but real. Over the following weeks, that hope grew stronger. Thomas never pushed. He was patient in a way that felt like respect rather than strategy. They had lunch together most days. They collaborated on projects, their different strengths complementing each other perfectly. He remembered small things she mentioned in passing, like her favorite flowers or the author she had been trying to find time to read. One Saturday, 3 months after Victoria started at Whitmore Holdings, Thomas invited her to a charity gala the company was sponsoring. Completely optional, he said. But I could use a friend there. These events make me anxious. Victoria went. She wore a simple black dress and found Thomas waiting in the lobby in a suit that actually fit him properly for once. He looked nervous and handsome and nothing like the smooth corporate executive he was supposed to be. "You look beautiful," he said simply. The gala was elegant but not overwhelming. Thomas introduced her to dozens of people, always including her in conversations, never leaving her alone. When the dancing started, he asked permission before taking her hand. "I should warn you," he said as they moved onto the floor. "I am a terrible dancer." He was right. He stepped on her foot twice and apologized profusely both times. But Victoria found herself laughing, genuinely happy for the first time in what felt like forever. As they swayed to the music, Thomas looked at her with an expression so open and honest it made her chest ache. "You know what I realized?" Victoria said softly. "What?" "James never once asked me what kind of flowers I liked. In the entire time we dated, he never asked about my favorite book or my childhood or my dreams. He talked and I listened, and I thought that was normal." Thomas's jaw tightened. That was not normal. That was not okay. "I know that now." Victoria smiled. "Because you showed me what real interest looks like. What respect looks like. What partnership could be." "Victoria," Thomas said, his voice rough with emotion. "I am ready," she whispered. "If you still want to try." "I am ready." Thomas stopped dancing. Right there in the middle of the floor, with music playing and people swirling around them, he cupped her face gently in his hands. "Are you sure?" he asked. "Because I will wait as long as you need. There is no rush." "I am sure." He kissed her then, softly and carefully, like she was something precious. And Victoria felt something inside her finally settle into place, a piece of herself she had not realized was missing. When they pulled apart, both smiling, Victoria understood something she had not known on her wedding night 6 months ago. Some marriages end before they begin because they were never meant to last. They end to make room for something real, something built on actual foundation instead of fantasy. She had lost a husband who never truly chose her. But in that loss, she had found herself again. She had found her strength, her worth, her voice. And in the most unexpected place, standing in the shadow of her greatest heartbreak, she had found someone who saw her clearly and chose her anyway. Not because she was perfect. Not because she fit some image. But because she was exactly who she was supposed to be. Thomas took her hand as they left the dance floor, his fingers warm and solid around hers. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. Victoria smiled, looking out at the city lights beyond the ballroom windows. "I am thinking about beginnings," she said. "And how sometimes the best ones come disguised as endings." "I like that thought," Thomas said softly. "So do I," Victoria replied. And she meant it. Outside, the city continued its endless motion. But inside, in that moment, Victoria Hayes finally felt still. Finally felt found. Finally felt home. Not because a man completed her, but because she had completed herself. And in doing so, she had made room for someone who truly deserved to be there. Some stories do not end with wedding vows. Some stories begin long after the wedding is over, when the illusions fall away and truth finally has space to breathe. This was Victoria's truth. This was her beginning. And it was only just getting started.